So is flexible dieting something that you should actually do? Right now, in my space, there's a lot of, stuff going around about fixing your relationship with food, or, being a flexible dieter and having things in moderation. And if you've been around my stuff for a while, I think you know my stance on moderation and that stuff. But first, I think we should define what actually is flexible dieting. Well, in the common practice of it, what flexible dieting means is your nutrition is like, 70 to 80% on track, and then you kind of allow yourself to fit things in moderation. Now, don't get me wrong, that works well for a lot of people, and it's not people that I work with, but there are people who have found success doing a flexible dieting approach. But the reality is that most of the people that at least I work with have tried that approach and it's failed them. And most people will tell you, especially people preaching that lifestyle, they'll tell you that the reason you fail is because you refuse to have those things in moderation. Now, I'm sure you're watching this video and you're like, man, I've had those things in moderation and it just made me want them more. And that's exactly correct, right? Because here's the thing. Is that when you have those things, there are things that actually make you feel full, make you feel satisfied, make it to where you don't necessarily want to have more and more of it. But let's take a cookie, for example, right? You're going to have that cookie, and even if it's part of your caloric intake and all that stuff, you're just going to want more of that cookie. Very few times can somebody have one or, a bite of something and then just be like, oh, I'm good. I just wanted a taste of it. And if that's you, congratulations. I know that you're going to be successful doing that approach because you have the willpower to do that. But a lot of us don't have that. And speaking of willpower, we all think that, oh, well, I'm just too weak, or I need to be stronger and I'm the problem. And no, willpower is a limited resource. It's eventually going to run out, which is why when you want to take the approach of, we call it knowing thyself, right? You have to know thyself and what you're actually capable of. But when you're taking the approach of knowing yourself, if you know that having a bite of the cookie or something like that is going to lead to you wanting more, then you need to set yourself up in a winning position. Because willpower, like I said, is a limited resource. You're not going to have a bunch of it forever. And when you run out of willpower, which everybody does, once you run out of it, you're going to have to make sure that your diet is set up in a way of success. So, how do you do that? Well, in my opinion, the best thing that you can do is restrict those things to very special moments, right? And what I mean by special moments is not because it's Tuesday and hubby wanted a cookie, not because it's, oh, my girls are, I don't know. We have to make sure that it's truly special. So let me give you a couple examples. Anniversaries, right? That's one time a year that with your spouse, you've been together for that whole year, which relationships are always hard, baby. So you deserve that. Go out, have some drinks, have, banana foster, which is my wife and I's favorite thing when we have access to it. But make sure that it's a truly special moment, like an anniversary or a birthday, right? But make sure, here's the thing with birthdays, is people will say, oh, well, I have 4 birthdays this week. Well, which one's actually important to you? Like, which one, if you don't have something, someone's going to be like, that's messed up. So, for example, my son has this thing now it's almost turned into a joke for him because now he's 10. But when he was, between 3, 5, and, along those lines, when he still lived with me, that was his thing was, he remembered that I would never have cake with him on his birthday. And I hated that. I hate how it made me feel. And I missed out on so many special moments, especially him being a kid. Because, if you have kids, like, what are you doing, Dad? Have some cake, have some cake, have some cake. Right? And it's, I don't know, for some people it's like, oh, well, just be strong and don't have it. But for me, it's my kid's birthday, And so it's important to him, even to this day. Now, I don't know if he's joking around with it. This birthday that he had when he was here, I didn't have any cake with him because he didn't care. He had a slice of cake and he went back in his room and he played some video games and he was happy. So I decided not to have it. But for my daughter's birthday, oh my gosh, she would not stop talking and she really wanted me to have some. So I had a small piece. So that's what I mean by restricting it for very special moments, and, or your girls, you haven't seen them, or guys, right? You haven't seen them in 10 plus years. They come into town, they want to go out for a drink or something like that. Enjoy that. It's not something that you do most of the time. And that's kind of where I'm leading into. But there's a reason why saving it for special moments will actually help you. And it's because of the way that the brain works. Now, I know that most people think that sugar is sugar, food is food, and that's just the way that it works. But there are so many different chemicals that are going on. The two most important ones being serotonin and dopamine, right? Well, when we eat that junk food, we get a shot of dopamine. And with that dopamine, it's that signal that's saying, hey, we feel good. Like this, we should do more of this, right? And that's just how it works. Well, when you're always eating junk food or when you're always eating sugar, you're always relying on those outside sources of dopamine. And what that means is in order to get the same high, in order to get the same feeling, what do you have to do? You have to eat more and more. And so you can see that it's a never-ending loop. And so people will say, well, I ate the sugar, I ate the junk food, and it made me feel better. But then what you'll find is over time, that one small bite that you were having in moderation no longer satisfies you the way that it once did, right? Now you're like always searching for more of the same hit, more of the same high. And with that, your brain's always trying to remind you, hey, we want more dopamine. And so because it's not relying on its normal levels, it's trying to get you to break and go off of that, right? Now, going back to the brain, if you go without those things for an extended period of time, your brain will start to produce its normal levels of dopamine, which is what it's designed to do, okay? We don't need all this outside stuff. We just think that we do because of the way that our diet is set up. And so it'll go back to its normal levels of dopamine. And guess what? Before you know it, you're not even craving those things like you once did because you gave your brain time to heal. And then when you do have those things, because during that time you've changed your associations, you've changed the way that done things, you've changed the way that you view yourself, your beliefs, your values, all of those things, because now you're no longer clouded under this dopamine high, you're actually able to make real progress and you don't even want it like you once did. The problem is that most people don't even give themselves a chance to feel that way, right? And so you can see that just relying on willpower isn't going to work because it's a finite resource. And then all of those outside circumstances like the dopamine, which are there to make you feel good and relaxed and all that stuff with the serotonin, blah, blah, blah. You can see how eventually that runs out and then you go back to your old ways, right? Or it's our association with it, but regardless, willpower isn't going to work. So what do you have to do? Well, it's the same thing that I've been talking about forever. Number one, like I said, if you want that flexible dieting approach, because that was the topic of this video, then you need to make sure that when you're doing a flexible approach, is it actually helping you or is it hurting you? Do you keep falling off of your diet? Do you keep starting over on Monday? If that's you, that approach doesn't work, because for me, I know it's much easier to say no to the basket of chips than it is to see how many I could fit in, right? And I think, well, I know that most of the people we work with, they're the same way. I don't know who's watching this video right now, so you might be that way too. But anyways, we need to decide, okay, is this actually helping us or is this hurting us? The second thing I would say is if you are trying to take a flexible approach, you need to make sure that they are for special moments, right? I highly don't recommend having them every single day. I think that builds your tolerance level of dopamine, which means you need more and more to get the same high. And then if you try to, just keep increasing it, well, you're going to need more and more of that food, and it's going to get harder and harder to overcome that addiction. And then the third thing is, I just don't think that there's a third thing. I think that those two should let you decide what you need to do. But in my honest opinion, just to kind of sum up this video, do I think that flexible dieting is something that you should do? I don't think it is. In my opinion, you've been flexibly dieting for the last however long you've been trying to lose weight. And even before you were trying to lose weight, you were flexibly dieting. And you got to ask yourself, how did that work out for you? Are you where you want to be? Because I can almost guarantee that if you're watching this video, you're probably not, unless you work with us. And of course, you look amazing now. But if you're someone who doesn't work with us and you don't like where you are, well, then you know that flexible dieting isn't an approach that you can take. It's like the same thing when people say, well, how long can I go without having a cheat meal? And in my opinion, you've been cheating all the time before you came to me, right? You had your cheat meals and they didn't work out. Now it's time to not cheat on yourself for a long period of time, right? But hey, that's just the way that I do things. You can obviously do things the way that you want to do them. Of course, unless you're working with us, then you know that you got to do things our way because, yeah. Anyways, I hope that was helpful for you. I don't recommend a flexible dieting approach. I know that there's tons of people who talk about it, but it all comes back to knowing thyself. Is it something that actually helps you? Do you keep starting over on Monday? Are you able to stick to your weight loss results? And if you're not, well, then it's probably not the approach for you. So if this was helpful for you, please consider sharing it. Leave a comment below. And yeah, have a great day.